Ah, welcome, my friends, to Paranormal Heart Podcast. Tonight's segment is pre-recorded, streaming on United Public Radio Network, 107.7 New Orleans, as well as 105.3 the Gulf Coast. I'm your host, Kat Ward. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. A formal disclosure, Paranormal Heart Podcast is for entertainment purposes only. All information shared in this podcast is not professional advice. The views and opinions expressed on Paranormal Heart Podcast are not necessarily those of the show host, network, or producers. Paranormal Heart Podcast is always respectful and courteous to all involved. So get ready for an unforgettable night with Tommy Cullum. Oh, I'm starting to lose my voice already, and we just started. I apologize. Tonight's episode is going to be an absolute thrill. I'm beyond excited to welcome back a very special guest, a true brother from across the pond, Tommy Cullum. You know him as the mind behind Tommy Cullum's Let's Get Freaky podcast, where he dives deep into the mysterious world of the paranormal. That's ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, you name it. Tommy's exploring it, and he does it with the kind of enthusiasm and passion that makes every episode an unforgettable ride. If you're a fan of the unknown, you're in for a treat. Tommy's been a frequent guest on our show, and every time he comes on, it's like uncovering new layers of the supernatural world. From spine-tingling ghost stories to mind-blowing UFO encounters, Tommy brings an energy to the table that you just can't get enough of. So buckle up, grab your favorite drink, and get ready to take a wild ride into the realm of the paranormal. So please help me welcome Tommy Cullum.
Hey, Kat.
How's it going?
Wow, thank you for that introduction. That was amazing. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And it's all true.
I appreciate that. You was my very first ever podcast when I first started all this.
I know.
And thank you. You started me off.
Well, I remember you reaching out to me wanting to be a guest. And I thought you were an amazing host. And at the end, after we stopped recording, you're like, "Oh yeah, I've only been doing this for like a month or so." And I'm just like, "Excuse me, you need to come onto my show." And we became friends, and now brother, paranormal family. So
yeah, 100%. You can't get rid of me now.
I was going to say the same about me. You're stuck with me. And our family has grown with the Fantastic Five too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Just got to give a shout out to the rest of the crew. So that's JJ Rose 777, Tim Sedano, and Eric. Oh my God, how do you pronounce his last name? I'm sorry, Eric. Zalagi.
Eric. Yeah, I am terrible I am so bad at pronouncing names. I forget my own kids' names. So Eric Salagi, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you did it better than I did. Thank you.
I don't know.
So you call your kids Thing 1 and Thing 2? Yeah,
I get their names mixed up all the time. So like I call Fred Amy and Ruby Fred, and I constantly the dog. I call him the dog's name. So my dog's called Blue, and I'm like Blue to the kids, and then I'm just a mess.
I have done that too. My grandmother had 13 kids, and so my mom's from a family of 13, and when my grandmother would be mad at one, she would say like the first part of the name until she got to the kid that she wanted.
Yeah, I've done that, and I've only got 3. Blimey.
Yeah. Oh, you have 3 kids?
I've got 3 kids. Yeah, 3 kids and a dog, and I'm constantly forever getting their names wrong. Like if I'm shouting at one, I go through all the other kids and the dog before I get to the one that I'm meant to be having a go at. But my mother-in-law does it, and I used to think back in the day, like, how does she do that? Like, why does she do that? And fair play to her, I do it every day now. So
that's funny. Yeah, when the kids like to mix the 2 names together and just like, what? No.
Yeah.
Or I'd call them by the dog's name.
Yeah. Now I just give them a nickname, and it's the same nickname. They've all got the same nickname, so I can't go wrong.
So before we get into Haunted Forest, which I'm excited to do, can you tell the listeners or the audience, because some of this is video, how you got into the paranormal?
Well, I've always been so fascinated by it since I can remember, since being a kid. I've always been one of those weird kids that was scared, like from the start. Like I was always scared of the dark. I always felt like there was something in my room. I know every kid has that. And then I had like that undeniable experience when I was 10 and I saw an entity in my room. I saw a ghost in my room. And I think I talked about that the first time with you. He looked like William Shakespeare, this dude. And I don't think it was William Shakespeare, but that it was from that era. He looked.
Yeah.
Like when, as a kid, that's how I sort of perceived him. I was like, that's, looking at him, he looked like William Shakespeare. And I had that experience, and it just sort of, for me, this is, this is undeniable. This stuff is real. And it's just been ever since then, just trying to find answers, talking to people like yourself, and so many people have experiences. And I just want to get to the answers, want to get to the bottom of it all. But
yeah, it's fascinating. I've only met one person who never had a paranormal experience, who was like an investigator, or was it a podcast? I think it was a podcast. Yeah, he was a podcaster, and he'd never had experiences before, but he's so fascinated by the topic that he wants to live vicariously through others, I guess.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but for the most part, people have had experiences, and it's normally from a young age. Some of them can only start in their teens or even their young adults, in the 20s. Mm-hmm. But usually it's as a child, which kind of gets us here. We're either terrified and just don't want to talk about it, or we're terrified and we still want to look into it. So
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's very rare. You're right. It's rare to meet someone that's not experienced anything. Like yourself, you'll talk to someone and they'll tell you that they don't believe in this sort of stuff. They're like, "No, I don't believe in it." And then they go, "There was this one time." Yeah. There was this one time where I woke up and there was a lady sitting on the end of my bed. I've heard that so many times. People say that, and yeah, it's very rare to meet someone, even a non-believer, that hasn't had some sort of experience.
And it's funny how it's the exact same sentence, but there was this one time. Mm-hmm. Everybody that I talk to says that, and everybody who has the same experience, like you just mentioned, they say the same thing, and it's always the exact same words. It's really intriguing.
Yeah, yeah. And then I think you get people like us that sort of accepted that experience, and I think that's why we have more. I know that's not the same for everyone, but I think for a lot of people that have quite a few experiences, I think that's just because we're open to it. And I think that allows whatever this stuff is in, basically.
Definitely.
And that's just my thoughts.
For me, it's actually slowed down. I don't know if it's like they're around me and there's just like, all she does is smile, nod, and says hello. Where's the fun in that?
Oh. Well, we was getting quite a lot of activity here quite recently, and it was getting to a point where it was sort of upsetting the kids, upsetting the wife, and then I sort of felt like, oh, this is not good. As much as I find it super interesting, I think having these conversations invites it in, and sometimes that's not a good thing. So I just prayed out loud, whatever's here, you're not welcome, basically, and it seemed to have calmed since having to do that. But yeah. It's around me, that's for sure.
Yeah. So haunted forests. Do you want to start with your experiences?
Yeah. I thought we could talk about, because a forest that I grew up very close to was Epping Forest. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've heard of that before. It's in like the Essex, London area. Okay. And it's a huge forest that spans across Essex and parts of London and all over. It's huge, but it's full of so much legends. So many different legends are there. Of people see shadow figures and witches and ghosts and like the headless horseman sort of thing. There's so many of those sort of legends in this forest, and I've spoken to a couple of people, including my mum, that have had experiences there, that have seen something, and I thought that's quite interesting. If you want to start with those. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, so my mum's experience, and I knew we were going to be talking about this, so I spoke to her today about it.
Okay.
And this is going back 40 years. This happened, and she was with my dad, and they live very close to this forest. So they was often in the forest quite a lot, and they were driving through, and they'd just been to the pub, and the pubs were all shut, so it was quite late. So it's probably about 11:30 to midnight, and they're driving home. And as they're driving along, my mum said she saw something, like something caught her eye in the corner. My dad was driving, and something caught my mum's eye, and she sort of followed it round. And she said, as she's looked round, she saw basically cross the road. She said it was like a mist, but she could see that it was a woman on a white horse.
Oh, wow.
And it crossed the road, and she said she just sort of lost sight of it. But to her, it was like that was possibly a ghost, you know,
Wow.
because it was misty. It wasn't like solid, but she said she could make out a woman. And then sort of looking into it, there are a lot of sightings of ghost horses and the white lady as well. So my mum possibly saw them both.
That's awesome. Wow. Well, England has, and Scotland and Ireland have lots of history of, because it's so old. So much has happened over there.
Yeah, it's full of old buildings. I've got a pub just down the road to me, which was built in like the 1200s, I think, and so it's got a lot of history there. And you go into these places, and I know, because in the US and obviously Canada as well, you've got a lot of history as well. There's a lot of new history, but obviously it's always been there, so stuff's happened.
Yeah.
But you go into these old buildings, and I feel like they just hold on to the energy, because you can just feel it. I know when you go into an old castle, like, you know, you're like, wow, this is an old castle. Imagine the things this place has seen. But I also feel like there is like an energy that's held in the walls as well. And I think that's what you feel.
Yep. I am so envious that you have castles.
Yeah.
And you have buildings like from the 12th century, you said?
Yeah, and before, yeah. I've got just literally half an hour down the road, there's Cullum Castle. I don't know if you've heard of that. That's something to do with... You've heard of that one? Yeah, that's cool. And that's to do with William the Conqueror. I believe he was like one of the first to reside in that castle. And it's sort of more ruins now, but it's still pretty much there. And I go there very often, and it's just magic to walk around. You know, you touch the wall and you think, man, the things that this has seen, the wars, you know, and yeah, I'm blown away by that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like I said, to be able to just go to a castle like that willy-nilly and having buildings that old. I mean, I've been to buildings that were from the 1800s, but not really anything older than that. So
Yeah.
it's just mind-boggling how you can just go to a building that's old and it's still standing and being used.
I think Cullum Castle, I believe it might be older, but I think it's at least 1,000 years old.
Wow.
It might be old, but it's definitely 1,000 years old. So it's been there a long time. And I had Mark Anthony Wyatt on Let's Get Freaky recently, and he lives in the US now, but he's originally from the UK. And when he was younger, he was camping out just outside Cullum Castle with some mates. And he said he woke up one night during the night, and he saw like the apparition of like a knight, like a medieval knight, standing in his tent.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's just down the road from me, man. I need to go and camp out there.
Do it. Bring cameras.
Yeah. That was pretty cool.
That is cool. Wow. So what was your experience? Oh, first of all, for your mother's encounter, was she freaked out, or was she just like, am I really seeing this?
I think she said like she didn't really talk about it much after that, which you often hear as well. Like you didn't really talk about it. And my mum was like, yeah, it was just very weird. She was like, it definitely wasn't like a solid person. It was like a misty white figure, but she could make out that it was a woman. And she did say this is 40 years ago, so it's kind of hard, but
yeah,
I know my mum's had a few other experiences as well. She's very much into this sort of stuff.
Okay.
But she says she hasn't seen like a lot of apparitions and stuff like that, but that is one that she saw. And yeah, she said she could make out like the shape of the horse, the shape of the lady, and then just looking at like a quick search on Google, you can see the history of Epping Forest and the things that are seen there, and that is one of the common things that are seen there. So I find that quite interesting. Yeah. And my mum didn't know that.
Okay.
I told her that today. I was like, that's quite a common thing to see, Mum. Yeah.
And it's amazing that she'd never heard of that before, and she witnessed it, and then she finds out afterwards that
Yeah.
not the first.
Yeah. I mean, she's told me, I've known that she had that experience for a long time. It was just knowing that we were going to talk about spooky forest. I was like, oh, I need to ask her about that again and see she can give me any fresh. Yeah.
And your dad didn't even see it?
He didn't see it. My mum wants me to ask it. They're not together now anymore, but I need to ask my dad. Yeah, I know my dad's had experiences. He's seen stuff.
Oh wow.
But I'm not sure. I think he was driving at that time, so he didn't see it. But I need to check. I need to ask him. I'm sure he'll remember my mum seeing it and talking about it.
Yeah. Maybe because he was driving, he saw the mist, but didn't just figured it was just mist. So not paying attention because you're driving, right? You need to pay attention to the road.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know, going back 40 years, I know now you can't do that at all. He might have had a couple of beers in him. I'm sure. He would have been in his early 20s at this time. So maybe, I don't want to get him in any trouble, but, but he was driving, but I don't know.
Yeah,
But I need to ask him.
yeah, let me know.
Yeah. But my mum definitely saw that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So go ahead.
And there was another lady who I work with now. So I live in Dorset now, which is about 2 hours from that forest. But a lot of people from London sometimes move out to here. And I was talking to a lady that I work with, and it was very much like how we started, where you say to someone, because we always ask people if they've had paranormal experiences. It's one of the first questions we're going to ask someone. Even, they look at us like, what? But before anything, we want to know about that. And so I know this lady quite well, and she knows I do the podcast and stuff. And she was like, I'm not too sure. I did have this crazy experience when I was a kid. I'm like, well, you got to tell me. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. No
And she's from London, North London, but she was in Epping Forest. And I think she was staying at a friend's house. But she was about 13 when this happened. And she said this is her only ever experience with the paranormal to this day. And it's quite a wild one. And she's got to be, I would say, her late 40s now, I think. Okay. And this is the only thing she's ever experienced, which I find quite interesting. But she was in Epping Forest with her friend. And there was another group of older kids that they were hanging about with. And I think there's certain parts of Epping Forest which is known for like black magic, witchcraft and stuff like that.
Yep. And
the kids that she were hanging around with were sort of, I don't know if they were, just sort of playing with some things that they shouldn't be playing with, and, what kids do with Ouija boards and stuff like that, which can be dangerous, as we know. And these kids were like basically doing spells and trying to conjure things up in the forest.
Oh, Lordy.
Yeah. So not a good idea. And the girl that I know was like, I need to get out of here. So at 13, she was like, this is not good. Don't want to be a part of this. I'm leaving. So her and her friend that she was with left this group to whatever they were doing in the forest, and that sort of made their way home. And they said the whole way home, they had a bad feeling. They'd obviously seen something that's upset them, but they had a bad feeling. They just wanted to get home. And they said on the way home, on the walk home, as they're walking along, they saw this huge she describes it, black shadow figure, which was like as tall as the houses, but the shape of a person moving along the houses. Mm-hmm. Like they both saw this and were like really freaked out, started running. And she said, as they're like running away from this thing, the whole atmosphere around them changed. There were like cats in the street making weird noises and running around. There was like, she said the drain started moving, and then it just, the whole atmosphere changed. Like it just turned dark. And she said they got back to her friend's house. They both ran up the stairs, went into the room, locked the door. And they said they could hear, for the whole that night, they could hear something running up the stairs, banging on the door, running down the stairs. And for her, that was enough. That's terrifying. For a first experience, that is terrifying. Yeah. That was enough for her to be like, I am never messing with this sort of stuff, And I believe you can switch this stuff off, like even if it's subconscious. Yeah. She didn't want anything to do with any of that stuff, and she's never experienced anything else. But I trust what she's saying is true, because I said to her, will you come on the podcast and talk about that? She's like, no, I'm not telling anyone about that. I'm like, well, I'm going to.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry if you're listening. I won't say your name, but but yeah, once you tell me, that's it. I've got to put it out there.
Yeah. Wow, that would be frightening.
Yeah, a scary one. So these kids, they were a little bit older, and they were obviously playing with stuff that
They shouldn't have.
you shouldn't be playing with, and the area as well. She was saying is known for like witchcraft and stuff like that. So not good for dark magic, like dark witch stuff. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, be careful what you play with, kids. It's not.
No
This stuff can be dangerous. That's for sure.
Isn't there a movie or something that's kids shouldn't play with dead things or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure, yeah.
Ugh.
Freaky stuff, man. But she was 13 when this happened, and she's not experienced anything else, she says, in her life since that night.
Yeah.
Which I find quite interesting, because that's quite a big experience. So there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that was in Epping Forest.
So, folks, if you want to play around with Ouija boards, just a little disclaimer. If you're going to do it, make sure you close it properly, read the instructions, Google it, whatever. Just make sure that you finish the game properly, because there's some nasty things that can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just having these conversations can bring up things. I've witnessed that myself. This stuff can be is pretty dangerous.
Yeah, like I'm not going to mention the name, but your phone just all of a sudden will start talking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Weird stuff like that. Yeah, that happens. Yeah, 100%.
You didn't even say the name of your phone, which I would say it, and just all of a sudden, yeah, it's so weird.
Yeah. There's been a few weird stuff happening recently in the house, which, and I don't mind it, because I've always sort of experienced stuff, and it does scare me still. I'm not going to lie, but when it starts happening to the kids, and they start seeing stuff, and the wife, I'm like, oh, okay, this is not good. This is not good. As long as it's nice, nice stuff. But when you get that negative feeling, which we were starting to get in the house, I was like, yeah, we've got to sort this out.
Do you sage your house?
I don't. See, for me, what has always worked is prayer and intention.
Yep.
And I feel like for me that is, because honestly, after doing the prayer and not a lot's happened. A few things have happened, and something weird happened a couple of nights ago.
Do tell.
I've not really talked about it, and it sounds crazy, but here we go.
You heard it here first, kids.
Yes, I've not mentioned this on Let's Get Freaky or any other shows. It's very fresh, and I don't really know what to make of it. So if you have any ideas, tell me, because this is all I've got. I don't know what this is, but so I normally record during the night, early hours of the morning in the UK, because most of my guests are in the US, so it's evening for them, so it's easy. So I finished, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd finished recording, and I can't go to bed straight away, so I have to have a tea or, watch a bit of TV just to wind down, then I'll go to bed. And it was about 4:30 in the morning, UK time, and I've gone in my room, and 2 of my kids are in bed with the wife. Right, so they'd obviously had a night terror or whatever, and got into bed with the wife. And I was like, I'm not going to wake them up now, because they'll be getting up for school soon. So I set up a little bed next to the bed to lay down, and all the lights are off in the room, and it's pitch black. Like there's no once you turn the lights off, there's no light. Which I don't like the dark cat, but if people are in there, I'm okay.
Yeah.
So I've turned all the lights off, and I've laid down in my little makeshift bed. And honestly, I saw, it was like a really quick flash that went round the room, but sort of shot round the room. And it was like a laser. So if someone had a laser pen, but slightly bigger than that and sort of like wider than that. But it was like a gold colour. And it was really shiny and it looked beautiful. And it just went round the room. And my heart's going boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, without even thinking, what have I just, I'm like, fairy. That's the first thing I thought too. And I was like, I've seen a fairy. And I'm like, wow. And my heart's beating. And I'm not saying it was a fairy. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But it was very strange. It wasn't any lights that were in the room. So I'm trying to work out what it could be. Mm-hmm. You know, I do jump to the paranormal very quickly, as you know. But I'm trying to debunk things now. I'm trying to okay, it could be this, it could be that. It could be my phone. It wasn't. It wasn't my phone. There was nothing. There was no lights in the room that could have made a reflection. There was no. So we have blinds in our bedroom now with curtains. Sorry. Mm-hmm. So nothing gets through. So there's no car lights. You know, there's nothing that could have made that unless something's going wrong with my eyes, which I guess is possible. But I was like, I've just seen a fairy. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
But it might not be a fairy. It could be anything. It could be some sort of orb. I don't know. But I saw that and I didn't get a nasty feeling from it. I wasn't like super scared, but I was like really, my heart was beating fast. I was quite shocked and I'm laying there like, have I had too much coffee tonight? Maybe. That's very possible.
Coffee overload.
Yeah. But it was like the colour as well. It was like gold. And it looked like Peter Pan when you see Tinkerbell flying really fast. Yeah. I didn't see like a body or anything like that. I just saw like a long line of light. But it was like gold. And it just went around the room. And I'm looking around. I'm trying to see if I can see it again or, you know. Very strange. I don't know what that was. I haven't shared that yet, Kat. But
thank you. Like I said, you're here to hear first, kids.
Yeah. That was 2 nights ago.
Wow. And it's funny how when you started describing it, that's what I was thinking of, the Tinkerbell, like,
yeah,
what I automatically thought of. So it's funny that I thought of that, and that's what you thought when you saw it.
That came to my mind straight away, like fairy, like as if like, you know, obviously we talk about this stuff all the time, so that's there.
Yeah.
You know, this sort of stuff is in our mind, but I was like fairy. I didn't think to myself, what was that? What could that be? It just sort of came. What it is, I don't know, but that's the impression I got.
It would have been kind of funny if you would have out loud said Tinkerbell and it would have come right in front of you.
Oh, that would have been incredible.
You would have had to change your skivvies, I think, after that.
I'll be like, please don't move. Please let me get a picture.
Yeah.
Because no one is going to believe me.
Yeah. Awesome.
But yeah, I used to worry about saying this stuff out loud, but now it's too late. So I just say it. That happened. You know, some people will say, oh, it's probably your eyes. But honestly, like I think if it was something wrong with your eyes, you're going to see stuff like that a lot more, I would have thought. And I've never seen that before. I might start seeing it now. I don't know. But so that was strange.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was your experience at that forest?
So in Epping Forest, I've not had any experience. I've been there a few times and walked around it, and I think every forest is spooky. I personally think there's stuff in all our forests, everywhere around the world. I think there's magic everywhere in all sorts of forests. But I've got a forest behind me, and I call it the Devil Dog Forest. Yeah, that's not the official name for it, but there is a devil dog lore there. And I can kind of sort of explain what's got me to that, if you want me to.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
So when I first moved to Dorset, we left London because of things that happened in 2020 that was like, okay, if we're going to be locked up, we want to be somewhere that's more close to the beach, forest. So we decided to move to Dorset. And it was like a place we used to go to on holiday quite a lot.
Oh, okay.
And for like weekends and stuff. And when we got locked up, it was like, we can't do that anymore. And it was really sad. So I think that was another reason why we was like, okay, when we can, we'll move. So we did it. We moved here and didn't know anything about the area really, apart from like the beach and stuff where we used to go. So didn't know anything about like local legends or anything like that. And didn't know any people, like we didn't know anyone. And so we moved to this house because it's got like a lovely heath forest just behind us. And that was a big selling point for us to come here. Mm. And when I first moved, I didn't start doing the podcast straight away, but I've always been like a night owl sort of person. Like I'll stay up late. That's just in me to do that anyway. Mm-hmm. So I started working a job where I finished at like 1 a.m. UK time. And then I would never go to bed. I still do that job now. I'd never go to bed after work, so I stay up and watch telly or whatever. Now I do the podcast. But so I'm sitting there in the front room, and this happened quite a few times in my front room. I would hear like a growling outside, right outside the window. Mm-hmm. Now, I always used to just think, okay, a lot of people have got dogs around here, and I know there was a big Rottweiler just across the road. So I just used to assume that they're letting their dog out, and I'm hearing it growl outside my house. Mm-hmm. But I always used to look out, and I could never see it, which was quite weird. And thinking about it now, why would you let your dog out in the front when you've got a back garden?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, at 2 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, that was just, I didn't think anything paranormal. I was just like, okay, that's weird. And then, so we go to that forest quite a lot. We go for walks in that forest. I took my 2 daughters one night, which we used to do quite regularly, still do. But we went for a nice walk in the forest, and we got quite deep into the forest and got to quite a high area. And my eldest, Amy, just started freaking out. She was like, Dad, there's something going, and started pointing to like quite far in the distance, but she was pointing and she's saying she could see a Bigfoot. And I know that, so at the time I'm like, okay, I couldn't see anything. I'm like, you're not seeing a Bigfoot, you're scaring yourself because it's getting dark. You've seen one of my documentaries that you shouldn't be watching, and you're scaring yourself. Yeah. But she's described it as like she saw something with yellow eyes, described it like a Bigfoot, and I'm like, wow, you know, I'm not completely dismissing her because that would be wrong because of what we do. Yeah. But I'm like, you're just imagining it, you know, and she might have been, but so anyway, that's enough for me to be freaked out to like, let's get home. So that was another thing that happened in that forest that was quite strange. And even today, like I talked to Amy about it, and I don't like talking too much to the kids about this, the scary stuff, but yeah. I still say to her every now and again, Amy, she's 13 now, what did you see at the time? Like, and she still stands by that, what she saw. But I didn't know anything about the devil dog law at this time. Like this was, so I'm talking to people that I'm working with now, started to make friends in the area. Mm-hmm. And this girl was like interested in Let's Get Freaky podcast. And she went, I've got this incredible book that you have to look at because it's got all ghost stories around our area where we are now. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's cool. Let's talk about it. And she said like, there's a really interesting devil dog law in our forest. And I'm like, wow. She went, she'd even had experiences where she'd like, I think she'd like felt something weird and there's like a weird smell in the air. Mm-hmm. People describe seeing red eyes and stuff like that, and like dogman type stuff, but more of a supernatural element, I think. Okay. So I was like, wow, so there's this possible dogman that maybe Amy saw, that maybe I heard growling outside my house, maybe, because we are very close. Because there's like, as you get into the forest, there's like a red brick road. Mm-hmm. Which is like a bricked area, which is a lot of people walk on, but then you get into like the main forest. Yep. And apparently that red brick road is where a lot of people experience what they call the devil dog. And it's like a black werewolf type dog man. And this was in this book that she had. And I was like, wow. So I'm like buzzing because I'm thinking, oh, wow, we've got this law. And then a few other weird things have happened for us in the forest. So we got Blue, which is my little dog now. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have Blue at the time, but we bought Blue, and he's a little fearless Staffordshire Bull Terrier. He's only little, but he'll take on anything. Like we've got wild bulls in the forest, and he'll like run at them, and I'm like, Blue, they will literally stamp on you. Yeah. Stop. But he's not scared of anything. Wow. And there was one day when we was, because there's all different routes you can go down in the forest, and we do all the routes and stuff, but we went down this one area, me, the kids, the missus, the dog, and he's fine. Like he's older, you know, so he's 2 now, so he'd have been about probably, I don't know, a year maybe when this happened, but he wasn't scared of anything, you know. And so we're walking down this certain area, and all of a sudden Blue just freaked out massively, like backing up, sort of trying to come to me to pick him up, and I'm like, Blue, what's the matter, mate? What's going on? Yeah. Kids are getting a bit weird because they're getting a bit freaked out because of how Blue's reacting, because it's out of character. And I'm like, okay, what is he seeing? You know, and I'm looking around, I'm trying to work out is there another dog that he doesn't like, or is there someone there that he doesn't like? Couldn't see anyone or anything. I'm saying to the wife, what's going on? Like, what's he doing? What's he doing? He's literally freaking out. So I picked him up, walked through this little area where he's having a mad one, got so far away, put him back down. He's as good as gold. I said to the wife, I need to go back and have a look. I need to just see if there's a smell or something that he's sensing that he's like freaking him out. Yeah. So I've gone back to the area, nothing. Couldn't see anything. There was like, because you got balls in the forest, there was like a big poo on the floor. And I was like, oh, is that Dogman or Bigfoot? So I took a picture of it, sent it to a couple of people, and they're like, no, that's cow poo. And I'm like, okay. Okay, so it wasn't that, because and that wouldn't freak him out because there's cow poo everywhere. These things are walking wild in that forest. So that wasn't what freaked him out. And I'm like, okay, so that's weird. And then I don't know if it was a couple of months later, the wife took him to the forest with a friend. Same thing happened, you know.
Same spot?
Wasn't the same spot,
okay,
but he just freaked out at nothing. And sort of she had to get him through that area. So it's like he's sensing something or he's seeing something. You know, I know kids and animals definitely see stuff that we don't always see. And so I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Could he be picking up on something that's scarier than a giant ball to him? Because if he's not scared of like balls and stuff, like what is this thing that's scaring him? Yeah. So that was quite strange. And then I bought the kids new bikes. So we used to go like for bike rides, and there was this certain area where the kids used to like going off, and it was like quarter of a mile or whatever. It wasn't super long, but I could see them the whole way down. And they would like ride down and then ride back to me, and they like going on this little route. And so it was a Saturday evening, so it was sort of getting to, it was summer, so it wasn't dark, but it was getting it's getting to dusk sort of. And the kids have gone on this little route that they like going on, and I'm watching them. All of a sudden at the end, I see what I thought was like a fox, but I'm like, it's not a fox, it's grey. And it looks quite big, and I'm like, it must be a dog, it must be a big dog. So I'm looking a bit worried because the kids are riding straight towards it, and they've both seen this, whatever it was as well, freaked out, and both of them have turned around on their bikes and started riding back to me. And little Ruby is my middle daughter, she fell over. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, so I've run to her to go and pick her up and make sure she's all right. Looked up, and this whatever it was, is gone. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, it's probably a big dog and the owner's called it back. Fine, no problem. Like, that's probably what it is. And it might even be that. I'm not saying it's not that. But I said to my daughter, I was like, what was that? What did you see that? And she was like, yeah, it was a wolf. And I was like, well, I was like, I think it was a fox. I don't know what it was. And I'm just trying to calm her down because she was a bit shaken up by it. So that was the other thing that happened in there that was very strange and possibly related to the devil dog lore. So now I just call it the devil dog forest. Yeah. And so I've had quite a few, that's quite weird. I've had quite a few weird experiences in there.
Was your daughter all right when she fell? No scrapes or bruises?
She was okay. She was just wanted to get away. She was quite panicked. So whatever they saw, whether it was a big dog, you know, it worried them enough to sort of turn around straight away and get back to me. Yep. But I didn't see any owners. See, I would have thought if there was a dog coming that way, you would sort of see the owner with the dog. Yep. But unless that was the end of their walk and the owners called the dog back, which is possible. Yeah. But it was you do get big dogs over there, obviously. You do get big grey dogs, but I don't know. I just found it very strange. Wow. So possibly something to do with the devil dog. But yeah.
You need to do a formal investigation.
Yes. Do you know Andy Decodes?
No, I don't think
So
so.
he's got Alienate UK, and he does a show, and he is talking about coming down and doing like a night walk with me in the Devil Dog Forest.
Nice.
Yeah, which to me, I've been in there at night, but I've never been like deep into the forest at night, which I should do really. I've said to the guys at work, maybe after work one night we'll go and have a little walk around the Devil Dog Forest, and they're like, yeah, let's do it. And then I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. I give it the big one, but then I get a little bit scared as well.
Don't go alone and make sure you have a weapon.
Yes, yeah. For
Something.
sure, for sure.
Whenever
Yeah,
we go walking in the woods with our dog, my husband has a big walking staff that he just found lying in the forest one time. So if something does come to us, at least he can, you know,
yes, yeah.
beat them with a stick. 'Cause we do have black bear here, and yeah, so
Yeah. Well, we don't have anything like that. That's the thing. We don't. Well, I mean, I believe we have big cats for sure
yeah.
because my mother-in-law saw a black panther 20 years ago in the UK, and she's not one that's like. She was quite amazed by it, but she's not like, oh, like I'm. Every time I see her, I'm like, tell me about the time you saw a black panther because I love that. And she's like, yeah, she saw it. It was like near the M25, which is like quite a busy road in the UK.
Mhm.
But she saw one like on the roadside, and her sister saw it as well. But at the time that she saw that, I remember as a kid, it was in that like the local press that there was big cat sightings going on, and I believe they're out there. I do think that so many people see them, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that they're out there. So we have stuff like that in the forest, you know. But yeah,
Creepy.
wolves. I'm not sure. I don't think we have any wild wolves.
You never know. A big Little Red Riding Hood type wolf.
Yeah, for sure.
I just want to mention, so I do have a list of haunted forests that I Googled yesterday, but there's one in particular that I want to mention, and it's in France. And I told you too before we started recording, I speak French, and I have a hard time pronouncing this one word. So it's called the Forest of Brocéliande in Brittany, France. And I always thought the King Arthur legend was in England, but apparently to this, it says this forest is where the King Arthur legend is. I guess it's home of the Merlin's tomb, which I didn't even know. A lot of people go there to do like a pilgrimage, and they make wishes for good fortune, etc. To like for the year, you know. And there's also a place called Val Sans Retour. In English, it's Valley of No Return. In this area as well, it claims to be where the sorceress Morgan Le Fay imprisoned young unfaithful men. And of course, Morgan Le Fay was half sister to King Arthur. And apparently in 1990, there was a terrible forest fire that went through there. I don't know if there was any fatalities or anything. I couldn't find anything about that. But they're also said to be a fountain of youth not too far from Merlin's tomb. And you'll see a lot of people also doing like a pilgrimage at the Fountain of Youth, and they're just sitting there quietly with their thoughts. I don't know what they're doing, but it's really, really fascinating because, like I told you, I always thought all this was in England, but apparently, according to this, it's in France in this forest.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We need to go, Kat.
Yeah, we do.
My mum lives in France.
Oh,
I know France is pretty big.
Yeah.
but yeah, we need to go. We've got somewhere to stay there.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah. I need to win the lottery so I can go traveling.
Let's go. Yeah.
Good grief. Yeah. Oh, this one. Hang on. So I just want to jump over to Germany because obviously the Black Forest. Apparently, that's where the Brothers Grimm were inspired to write their fairy tales. Just mentioning the Brothers Grimm, you automatically think of magic and monsters and damsels in distress in a dark forest, you know, just because of the Brothers Grimm. But it makes you wonder, was there any truth to the stories that they wrote? Because there's so many things that happen there. Like, I guess there's one called The Watcher of I'm going to butcher this name. I apologize to the German people. The Watcher of Schonach. I don't know. Schonach. Apparently, there's a hamlet that they have a specter that just stalks the night, and the locals call it the Watcher. Some people say that it's just active imagination, but others say that the Watcher is real. And they have an unnerving, like those who actually see the Watcher will have an unnerving gaze that they just lock eyes with. and all of a sudden, poof, it's gone. Which is kind of weird. And I guess the hamlet has noticed an increase in, they call it dark tourism. If there's lots of paranormal activity, people want to, they just flock there. Some people are there to debunk, some people are there to experience a thing. But apparently there's lots of dark tourism at this particular location. And some people just want to debunk it, and others just want to experience the gaze of the watcher. Yeah.
They're crazy. They're crazy people.
Yeah. I don't know if I saw that, if I'd want to look at it in the eyes, but
No, that can't be good.
no, I wasn't able to find out what happened to people, if anything, after they've locked eyes with this thing. But it's still kind of creepy.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Do you think places like that where they sort of become like tourist attractions, and people go there, like you get the famous haunted locations, like the haunted houses, they become sort of like popularized, and people go there to see, their experience there. Do you think that their energy and their intention there adds to it and makes it even stronger, and that's why these places get built up with some bad energy?
Yeah, because people have that energy, so it's kind of like a battery for all these entities. At least that's what I think. So yeah, it's just kind of like feeding the entities, so it's getting more and more haunted.
Yeah.
But there's also my first investigation before I joined a team here. There's a museum in the next town, like 20 minutes away, and there was a paranormal team that did a public investigation. And the very first one, 98 people showed up. They didn't expect that many people. They had to split the team up in 4 groups because there's so many people. Lots of things happen at this museum, apparently. I have been to the museum a few times. Well, the very first time, certain areas you could just feel. There was this one room that we were approaching, and I was getting more and more creeped out. And then when I turned the corner, there's this old, it's a carriage, but it was a hearse, an old fashioned hearse. And it's just like, as soon as I saw it, I was just like, okay. But I could feel it before I even saw it. It was so cool.
Wow.
But for this investigation, not very much happened because I think there was so many people that maybe we just didn't notice paranormal activity happening. There's that aspect as well. But yeah, I definitely do believe that if you have a lot of people going to the same location, that it's their energy.
Yeah, and I think that can create something as well. I think that can create like its own entity.
Oh, definitely. Well. Yeah. At least that's how I feel, anyways. Yeah, but there's so many haunted forests, especially in Germany. It was so cool. Let's see. There was another one.
There was a film I watched. I can't remember the name of it. I'm so bad at names. I'm pretty sure it was set in Germany, and it was a book before, but it was basically about a haunted forest that had all this. It was I can't remember the name of it, so I know that doesn't really help. But it was a book that I read. I read the book first, and then they made a film out of it. What was it called? I've gone blank. But it was like a group of guys go into the forest, and they start going crazy basically because something's attacking them, and it's a great book, but I forgot the name, and I'm sorry to bring that up. People will be like, well, that doesn't help.
Okay. Maybe you'll think of it at some point.
Oh, if I remember it, I'll send it to you. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, there's another part of the Black Forest. They call it the Lost Souls of the Black Forest. So apparently, it's easy to get lost in the Black Forest from what I was reading. Legend tells of lost souls roaming the woods. Dark figures are spotted for just a fleeting moment. And to me, can you just imagine you're just walking through the forest and you suddenly get lost? And then some people just never see you again. There's hikers and thrill seekers claim to have encountered wandering spirits in the Black Forest, and some say it's simply the moon and mist playing tricks on your eyes. But some say that no, it houses the living as well as lost souls of those who have vanished without a trace. So that's pretty interesting too. I mean, I just can't imagine walking through a forest and getting lost, and you never leave it. But your soul is still looking for the way out. I mean, that's got to be terrifying.
100%. I have been lost in a forest before.
Oh, have you?
A couple of times actually.
Yeah.
And one time was in the Devil Dog Forest.
Oh.
I'm pointing behind me because it is just over there.
Okay.
And I was with my kids and one of the kids' friends, so I had even more pressure, and the dog as well.
Yeah.
And so I say there's all different routes you can go on, and it's huge. It goes on for like miles, and I'm sure it connects to other forests and stuff. But so we've gone this different sort of route, and it was a summer's day, and we was out, and I thought I knew where we was. I was like, yeah, I know where we are. We're going to get back. We just go this way and this way. All of a sudden, I'm like, hang on. I don't know where I am. Then the kids are going, we need a drink. And I'm like, oh, no. And I've not only got my kids, I've got a friend's kid as well. And I'm like, okay, stay calm. I'm going to be able to find my way out. But for about a good 5 minutes, I was like, I don't know what way to go. I don't know where I am. And I was getting a bit panicked. And I can see how quickly that could sort of throw you, and like you could go into a real panic and maybe injure yourself or something like that. Luckily, I did find a way out pretty quick. But for a few minutes, I was like, I am lost in a forest. And that is such a horrible feeling. That is and you feel like you know where you are sometimes. And you're like, okay, I come here every day. I know exactly where I am. But like that, a different route slightly, and it's like, I don't know where I am. And it's very confusing, quite scary. That's happened a couple of times.
My dad and I, many years ago, my grandparents, rest their souls, lived in the Okanagan Valley in British Columbia. Ooh. And my father and I went to visit them several years ago, and they had a dog. And so where their house was, there's a mountain in their backyard with its forest. So we would take Granddad's dog out for a walk in the forest because that's what he used to do. And it's not a creepy tale, but it's just every once in a while we'd lose sight of the dog and like, where did she go? She'd sneak around behind you, and then as she runs past you, she'd hip check you. And it's like, and then she'd stop, turn around, look at you with that canine smile. It's like, are you kidding me? So that's the point that every time I didn't know where she was, we'd all kind of like crouch down a little bit so that she wouldn't be able to take her feet out from underneath us, But there was one time my dad and I, we got lost, and we're just like, oh crap. And this is before we had smartphones. Cell phones were coming out, but we didn't have the smartphones to be able to tell us where we're going. And we're just like, trees all look the same, right? Yeah. And so then it's just like, okay, Dad, I just followed my instincts, my intuition, and we found our way out, not too far from where we went in. And Dad's like, how did you do that? I'm like, I have no idea, but I'm glad we're out. But
it's terrifying.
It is, yeah. I mean, we know that the houses aren't too far, but we can't see it from where we are because of the trees, but you just get turned around and it's like, oh crap.
Yeah. We had it another time as well when I was with the missus and the kids this time, and we was in another forest. This was in Essex, and same thing happened. Thought we knew where we were, went a little bit off track, and it all looks the same. And I was like, oh man, I don't know where we are. And I was with the wife, so it wasn't too bad. It was like, okay, we're gonna find our way out eventually. Yeah. But this dude out of nowhere, and to this day I don't know what he was or what he was doing. He was in like military gear, and he just sort of ran past us, and I was like, oh my gosh, potentially there's a man with a weapon. That's what I'm thinking, because he had the military. Yeah. Now sort of like playing with us, and that's when I started getting really scared. And I don't think he wasn't a go. I don't think he was. He might have been, but he was like a solid man, and he just ran past us in all this like military stuff, and I was like, this is weird. And nothing happened. We did find our way out, but yeah. That was another time.
Did he acknowledge you?
No, he was just like running through.
Weird.
I don't know if he was like on some, I don't know, like military excursion or something. I don't know, like training. But there was no like military bases. I think there was none near us. But yeah, it was quite strange. And I'm thinking, there's potentially a man with a weapon playing Rambo in the forest, and we're lost. So great. But luckily nothing happened there, and we got out.
Yeah.
But it is scary.
It is, yeah. Wow.
But I think all forests are scary. I think all forests have got like in the right moment, you can scare yourself.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Because I've said before, like Bigfoot, people say that they're very, very hard to spot, and some people are even questioning if they exist in the forest. But how many times has like we've been in the forest that we've actually seen fox, deer, coyote, bear in the forest that we're in, because we have all that here. We know they're there, but there's not very. I've never seen a bear in the woods here. I've seen them outside the woods, walking down the street or in people's backyards, whatever. But I've never seen anything in the yard, and I've seen deer on the outskirts of the forest, but never anything inside. So who knows?
Yeah, in their habitat, they're masters of getting away from us.
Oh yeah, and camouflage. Good grief! And I mean, by the time we could even potentially see them, they already know we're there because we're so noisy in the forest, unlike them,
Yeah, yeah. And they can smell us from like miles off. Like,
Oh, yeah.
There's them people.
Yeah. Everybody's got to hide.
Where I used to live in Essex, like deers were quite common. They used to come right up to your house because they don't really get shot in Essex. Like there is places where they do, but they sort of get used to humans, I think.
Yeah.
And I remember one morning, and it was just before Christmas, and it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was quite like just a normal street in the UK, and literally there was about 15 deers just walking in the middle of the road, down the road, and I was like, that's so cool. I think it was like the 23rd of December or something, so it was really close to Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, it was like a little magical moment. Yeah, but yeah, they don't see the antlers, and yeah.
Did you have snow?
There was no snow. It was cold, but we didn't get snow. But yeah, it was a cool thing to see. It was quite icy, I think, so it was quite Christmassy.
Still winter.
Yeah. There was another morning when I was walking to work, and I saw something coming towards me in the distance, and I'm thinking, is that a dog? Because it was like running towards me, but it was quite big, and I've got out of the way of it, and this thing, I don't think it was going to stop. It was just a deer just running on the footpath. It just ran straight past me. I was like, wow, they're not scared. Yeah.
Wow. Bring some carrots with you or something.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess you don't want to do that. Then they'll get too used to humans. And
Yeah, well, they get in my mother-in-law and my father-in-law's back garden. So they get deers actually jumping the fence and getting in and eating the grass. Yeah. Yeah, they don't care in the UK.
There's this guy that I follow on Instagram. I can't remember his name. He's African American, and he says white women are not afraid of anything, because you'll see videos of this woman thinking it's a dog. It's like, come on, baby, you want to come home with me? And it's a coyote. And the guy's like, white women are not afraid of anything.
That's some videos you watch like that, because they're going up to a bear to try and get a selfie with it, and you're like, no, what are you doing? That's not going to end well.
And you see videos of Russians just playing with bears. Like,
yeah,
what is it?
Fighting them.
Or they have them as pets. They're just like, what?
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Yeah.
Well, Tommy, thank you so much. I look forward to having you on again. This was amazing. Before we sign off, could you tell the audience where they can find you?
Yeah, so Tommy Cullum's Let's Get Freaky podcast. We are wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts, we're there pretty much. We're also now on YouTube as well, so you can watch the interviews, most of the interviews. I'm trying to get all of them back on, because I've not always done the YouTube, but I'm going to try and get the older episodes back on as well. But now I always normally post the episodes to YouTube as well. Let's Get Freaky podcast on YouTube. So yeah, we're everywhere. If you've got paranormal experiences to share, like with Kat, we love to hear them.
Definitely, yeah. Thank you so much, brother. Hang tight. I'll just say my farewells to the audience, and maybe we can have a little chat afterwards.
Thank you so much, Kat.
Thank you. You take care. So thank you so much to my special guest tonight, and UPRN 107.7 New Orleans and 105.3 the Gulf Coast. Remember, if you enjoyed the show, please support us by liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting. And another way to help support the show is by grabbing some swag. If you'd like to pick up your very own Paranormal Heart mug, send me an email at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. It's quite the conversational piece here, so we have different colors too. So thank you again. Until next time, take care of each other. Much love to you all.